Good morning. is wonderful to be together with you all this morning as we continue our Yom Kippur celebrations. Whether you're in person here in the sanctuary or live at home via the live stream, we are delighted that you've chosen to spend this, the holiest day of our Jewish calendar, with our Temple Shir Tikva community. In 2012, a group of tourists spent hours on a Saturday night looking for a missing woman near Iceland's Elja Canyon, only to find her among the search party. The group was traveling through Iceland on a tour bus and stopped near a volcanic canyon that Saturday afternoon. Soon there was word of a missing passenger. The woman, who had gone to freshen up and change her clothes, did not recognize the description of herself and so joined in the search. It was not until about 3 a.m. that the search for the missing woman was called off, when it became clear that everyone was accounted for and that she had found herself. On Yom Kippur, we are like that woman. In a communal search party, we are still seeking to find ourselves. We have an opportunity for prayer, for confession, and for silent reflection as ways to get to the root of whom we are. We hope that by the end of today, we will emerge having found ourselves and ready to embark on the year that lies ahead. During the service, you will hear the beautiful sound of our choir's voices. For those of you who are here in person, the sound will be coming from behind you, as they will primarily be singing from the foyer. We invite that you join with us in prayer and in song, whether you're at home or here in the sanctuary, as we continue now on page 140 with Esa Enai. Esa Enai el haharim, me'ayin yavo Ezri, Ezri me'im Adonai, oseh shamayim va'aretz. I lift my eyes to the mountain. From where will my help come? My help comes from the eternal, maker of heaven and earth. We turn now to page 176 and the Chadzi Kaddish. And face towards the east, turning to page 178 and the words of barachu.
Barachu.
If you'll please be seated. Baruch atah Adonai ha'olam, hapoteach lanu sha'arei rachamim, umeir einei hamachakim leslichato, yotzer or uvorei choshech, oseh shalom uvorei et hakol, or olam bo'otzar chayim, orot me'ofel emor vayehi. And we turn to page 180. In the middle of the page, we read, "In love, you bring light to the earth and its creatures. Your goodness renews the creation each day. Infinite, varied, and rich are your works, divine artist, all of them wrought with wisdom. The whole earth is teeming with life. Awestruck by the universe, work of your hands, let all life bless you, praise you, and celebrate the beauty of your lights." On the top of page 183, you love us by helping us grow. You give us Torah, a ladder for the soul, words that draw us upward. Every mitzvah, an invitation to climb, forge and kiln and crucible, to purify our hearts. You give us Torah. You love us by helping us grow. As we turn to the Shema that you'll find on page 186, for one day a year, we are like the angels, and we recite Baruch Shem Kavod in a full voice, joining with them on this Yom Kippur.
וקשרתם להורות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אדוני אלוהיכם אמת.
We turn to page 197. Who is like you among the silent, mute and inscrutable? You witness our pain. Once upon a time the sea was split, and Israel marveled at your outstretched arm. How many have cried out since then? How many have sunk beneath the waves? Centuries of innocent blood, lives lost to hunger, war, to cruelty or indifference, and those who died with your name on their lips. And still they perish in distant lands, and still they languish on our chilly streets. Your creatures are drowning even now, so why should we sing? Ever silent, hiding out in history. You have your reasons, or so they say. You left us on our own, so let us give you leave. Withdraw into yourself, withhold your saving power, and we will live on memories of joy, and stubborn and stiff-necked will cling to hope, and gather strength to fight the pharaohs when we must, and hold fast to freedom, and celebrate in song, and vow we will never be among the silent, as we sing the words of Micha Mocha on page 196.
Bezrat Yisrael, Uvdechinu Mecha, Yehuda beYisrael. Go Avinu Adonai Tziva'ot Shemo, Kadosh Yisrael. Baruch atah Adonai.
In the depths of night, by the edge of the river, Jacob was left alone. In heartfelt longing in the temple of God, Hannah uttered her prayer alone. In the barren wilderness, in doubt and despair, Elijah found God alone. On the holiest day in the Holy of Holies, the high priest entered alone. We are bound to one another in myriad ways, but each soul needs time to itself. In solitude, we meet the solitary one. Silence makes space for the still, small voice. For the psalmist says, "Deep calls unto deep." From the depths of our soul, we seek what is most profound. We rise as we are able now in body or in spirit on page 198 for the Amidah and turn to face the east.
Oh
may be seated. Page 209. Today we call it by its rightful name, a day of dread, Norah va'ayom. Unwelcome visitor, for we want to live in a sunny world where God is love and all endings are happy. But the drumbeat sounds and the words tumble down, and even the angels tremble with fear. For all things are judged, and all things will pass, and life ends in a heartbeat, and death knows our name. At the start of the year, in the season of truth, comes the day of remembrance, for all we forget and all we deny. And we fall on our knees in the depths of our hearts, for we know that the bell tolls for us. The words are old, and the language was theirs, but the call is real, and the message is ours. Take hold of your life while you still have the chance. For the story will end, and it might be this year in a way you do not know. Take hold of your life, make things right while you can, and don't miss the call of the day of dread. We continue with Unatana Tokef on the facing page. Let us proclaim the power of this day, a day whose holiness awakens deepest awe and inspires highest praise for your dominion, for your throne is a throne of love. Your reign is a reign of truth. In truth, you are judge and plaintiff, counselor and witness. You inscribe and seal. You record and recount. You remember all that we have forgotten. And when you open the book of memories, it speaks for itself, for every human hand leaves its mark, an imprint like no other. Uveshofar gadol yitaka, v'kol dmama daka yishama. And so a great shofar will cry Tikiyah, and a still small voice will be heard. Angels in a whirl of fear and trembling will say, behold the day of judgment, for they too are judged. In your eyes, even they are not blameless. All who come into the world pass before you like sheep before their shepherd. As a shepherd considers the flock when it passes beneath the staff, you count and consider every life. You set bounds, you decide destiny, you inscribe judgments. On Rosh Hashanah, this is written. On the fast of Yom Kippur, this is sealed. How many will pass away from this world? How many will be born into it? Who will live and who will die? Who will reach the ripeness of age? Who will be taken before their time? Who by fire and who by water? Who by war and who by beast? Who by famine and who by drought? Who by earthquake and who by plague? Who by strangling and who by stoning? Who will rest and who will wander? Who will be tranquil and who will be troubled? Who will be calm and who tormented? Who will live in poverty and who in prosperity? Who will be humbled and who exalted? But through teshuvah, return to the right path. Through tefillah, prayer, and tzedakah, righteous giving, we can transcend the harshness of the decree. On the facing page. When we walk through a valley of darkness, but find courage to live in the shadow of pain, we transcend the harshness of the decree. When we speak about fear with honesty and share what is hardest to say, we transcend the harshness of the decree. When day becomes night, but we let ourselves hope, we transcend the harshness of the decree. When we feel far from caring and friendship, but let go of pride to ask for help, we transcend the harshness of the decree. When in grief, we are crushed by the absence of love, but open ourselves to your presence, we transcend the harshness of the decree. Adam yisodo me'afar, v'sofo le'afar, benafsho yavi lachmo, Mashov keheres hanishbar, kachatzir yavash, tzitz novel, ketzel over, anan kala, ruach noshavet, avak polea, v'chalom yauf. We who are mortal, our origin is dust, and so is our end. We wear out our lives to get our bread. like broken vessels, like withered grass, and like a flower that must fade, a shadow moving on, a cloud passing by. Mere dust on the wind, a dream that flies away. But for you, ever-living sovereign, time has no limits. Your presence, unbounded by days and years, is everywhere, a glorious mystery none can decipher. Your name is worthy of you, and you are worthy of your name, and our name you have linked with yours. We turn now to page 218 for the Katusha. Please rise as you are able. We continue silently now through page 250. You may be seated as you conclude your prayer. turn now to page 252 and rise as we open the ark for the Avinu Malkeinu. Avinu Malkeinu, Shema Kolenu. Avinu Malkeinu, Almighty and merciful, hear our voice. Avinu Malkeinu, Chatanu lefanecha. Avinu Malkeinu, we have strayed and sinned before you. Avinu Malkeinu, Chamol aleinu va'al ulaleinu v'tapenu. Avinu Malkeinu, have compassion on us and on our families. Avinu Malkeinu, kaled dever v'cherev v'ra'av me'aleinu. Avinu Malkeinu, halt the onslaught of sickness, violence, and hunger. Avinu Malkeinu, kale kol tsar umastin me'aleinu. Avinu Malkeinu, halt the reign of those who cause pain and terror. Avinu Malkeinu, kotvenu b'sefer chayim tovim. Avinu Malkeinu, enter our names in the book of lives well lived. Avinu Malkeinu, chadesh aleinu shana tova. Avinu Malkeinu, renew for us a year of goodness. Avinu Malkeinu, malei yadeinu mibirchatecha. Avinu Malkeinu, let our hands overflow with your blessings. Avinu Malkeinu, harem keren mishichecha. Avinu Malkeinu, let our eyes behold the dawn of redemption. Avinu Malkeinu, na al tastivenu rekam fanacha. Avinu Malkeinu, we pray, do not turn away from us. Do not turn us away from you with nothing. Avinu Malkeinu, kabel barachamim uvratzon et tefilatenu. Avinu Malkeinu, welcome our prayer with love, accept and embrace it. Avinu Malkeinu, aseh imanu lama'an shemecha. Avinu Malkeinu, act toward us as befits your name. Avinu Malkeinu, aseh lama'ancha im lo lama'anenu. Avinu Malkeinu, act for your sake, if not for ours. Avinu Malkeinu, ein lanu melech ela ata. Avinu Malkeinu, you alone are our sovereign. Avinu Malkeinu, patach sha'arei shamayim yilfatenu. Avinu Malkeinu, let the gates of heaven be open to our prayer. Avinu Malkeinu, shema kolenu, chus v'rachem aleinu. Avinu Malkeinu, hear our voice, treat us with tender compassion. Avinu Malkeinu, almighty and merciful, answer us with grace, for our deeds are wanting. Save us through acts of justice and love.
Avinu
continue now with our Torah service on page 256 as our scrolls are taken from the Ark.
והאר עינינו בתורתך, ודבק לבנו במצוותיך, ויחד לבבנו, ויחווה וירא את שמך.
בתורתך, ודבק לבנו במצוותיך, ויחד לבבנו, ויחווה וירא את שמך. ולא נבוא, לא נקלל, בתורתך, ודבק לבנו במצוותיך, ויחד לבבנו, ויחווה וירא את שמך. שלושה דברים העולם אמן. על התורה ועל העבודה ועל גמילות חסדים, על התורה ועל העבודה ועל גמילות חסדים, על שלושה דברים, על שלושה דברים, על שלושה דברים העולם עומד. על שלושה דברים, על שלושה דברים, על שלושה דברים העולם עומד.
Be seated. In our Torah reading this morning, we remind ourselves that all of us stand here this day, leaders and learners, children and elders, wood choppers and water carriers, those of us in sanctuaries and those of us in living rooms, to be in relationship with Torah, with the holy and with each other, and above all, uvacharta b'chayim, to choose life. This morning, with these words from Parashat Nitzavim being shared with us by members of our community, we want to honor the life and health that have allowed us to be here together, in person and on screen, with gratitude for the good fortune that has allowed us to be together today, and with acknowledgement that in this time of ongoing trauma, we are all in need of healing. So as our Torah readers come up to stand with us on the Torah, I invite all of us to join in the blessings over the Torah scroll in a community aliyah of gratitude and prayer for health for us all. Please join with us in the blessings on page 258. Yamdu kulanu shetzrichim refuah l'aliyah l'Torah. Adonai hamvorach, Baruch Adonai hamvorach le'olam va'ed, Baruch Adonai hamvorach le'olam va'ed, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim, v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah. Our reading this morning can be found beginning on page 266. We'll hear the first few verses there and then continue at the bottom of page 267.
Adonai Elohecha uv'anato asher Adonai Elohecha koret imcha hayom.
Mitzvah hazot asher anohi mitzavecha hayom lo niflet hi mimcha v'lo rehoka hi lo vashamayim hi lemor mi ya'ale lanu hashamayma v'ikahecha lanu V'yashmi'enu ota v'na'asena v'lo me'ever layom hi lemor mi ya'aver lanu el ever hayom v'yikahecha lanu v'yashmi'enu ota v'na'asena Ki karov elecha hadavar me'od b'ficha u'bilvavecha lasoto.
Re'ei natati lefanecha hayom et ha'chaim ve'et ha'tov ve'et ha'mavet ve'et ha'ra asher anohi mitzavecha hayom le'ahava et Adonai Elohecha lalechet bidracha V'lishmor mitzvotav v'chukotav u'mishpatav v'chayita v'ravita u'varachecha Adonai Elohecha ba'aretz asher ata v'shama l'rishtah v'im yifnei levavecha v'lo tishma v'nidachta v'hishachavita le'elohim acherim va'avadetam.
הגדתי לכם היום, כי אבוד תאבדון, לא תאריכון ימים על האדמה, אשר אתה עובר את הירדן, לבוא שמה לרשתה. העידותי בכם היום את השמיים ואת הארץ, החיים והמוות נתתי לפניך, הברכה והקללה, ובחרת בחיים למען תהיה אתה וזרעך לאהבה את אדוני אלוהיך, לשמוע בקולו ולדבקה בו, כי הוא חייך ואורך ימיך, לשבת על האדמה אשר נשבי אדוני לאבותיך, לאברהם, ליצחק וליעקב, להם לתת להם.
We join in the blessing after on page 258. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torat emet v'chayei olam. Baruch atah Adonai notei haTorah.
How's this? Better? Okay. And a quick yeshikach to our Torah chanters this morning who honored us by fulfilling the mitzvah of sharing these holy words. We want to thank Lucy Newman, Susan Garfield, Stephen Noyes, and Lily Noyes for reading Torah for us today. Thank you guys so much. May you go from strength to strength.
And as all of us in this community were called together to the Torah this morning, a blessing for us all on page 262. Mi sheberach avotenu ve'imotenu Avraham, Yitzchak ve'Yaakov, Sarah, Rivka, Rachel ve'Leah, kol hakruim asher alu hayom lichvod hamakom, lichvod haTorah, v'lichvod yom hazikaron, hakadosh baruch hu yishmirenu v'yatzilenu, mikol tzara v'tzuka, mikol nega u'machala, v'yishlach baracha v'atzlacha b'chol ma'aseh yadenu, v'chatvenu v'chatmenu, v'chayim tovim b'yom hazikaron hazeh, v'im kol Yisrael v'nomar. Amen. And we know, too, that though all of us are in need of healing at this time, some of us are in particular need of healing of mind, of body, of spirit, and of soul. We turn to page 271 and hear now the words of Mi sheberach, turning our prayers to those in need of our strength and love on their path toward wholeness.
Mi sheberach avotenu ve'imotenu, Avraham, Yitzchak ve'Yaakov, Sarah, Rivka, Rachel ve'Leah, hu yivarach et hacholim, ba'or she'anu mitpalalim ba'avoram, hakadosh baruch hu yemamei rachamim aleichem, nehachalimam l'rapotam u'lechachazikam u'lechachayotam, ve'yishlach lahem mehira refuah
We rise now as we are able on page 274 as the Torah is lifted.
Bizot Torah asher sam Moshe lifnei bnei Yisrael al pi Adonai b'yad Moshe. La 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 la. La 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 la. La 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 la. La 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 la. Eitz Chaim hi lemachazikim ba retahecha meushar derachecha darchei noam vechol netivotecha shalom. Hashivenu Adonai elecha b'nashuva Kadesh Kadesh Yameinu Kadesh Yameinu Kekedesh.
If you'll please be seated. We turn now in our machzor, in our prayer book, to page 296 as we offer our words of confession. Eloheinu ve'Elohei avotenu ve'imotenu, tavo lefanecha tfilatenu, va'al titalam mitchinatenu, anachnu azei fanim ukshei oref, lomar lefanecha, Adonai Eloheinu ve'Elohei avotenu ve'imotenu, tzadikim anachnu, ve'lo chatanu, aval anachnu chatanu. Our God and God of all generations, may our prayers reach your presence, and when we turn to you, do not be indifferent. Adonai, we are arrogant and stubborn, claiming to be blameless and free of sin. In truth, we have stumbled and strayed. We have done wrong.
Ashanu
We turn to the top of page 298. Sarnu mimitzvotecha umimishpatecha hatovim, velo shava lanu, va'ata tzadik al kol haba aleinu, ki emet asita, va'anachnu hirshanu, ma nomar lefanecha, yoshev marom, ומה נספר לפניך, שוכן שחקים, הלא כל הנסתרות והנגלות אתה יודע. You know the secrets of the universe and the secrets of the human heart. You know and understand us, for you examine our inner lives. Nothing is concealed from you, nothing hidden from your sight. Eternal One, our God and God of our ancestors, we pray that this be your will. Forgive all our wrongs. Pardon us for every act of injustice. Help us atone for all our moral failures. We turn to page 300. Al chet shechatanu lefanecha ba'ones uveratzon, v'al chet shechatanu lefanecha b'yodim uvelo yodim. The ways we have wronged you under duress and by choice, and harm we have caused in your world consciously and unconsciously. Al chet shechatanu lefanecha bivli da'at, v'al chet shechatanu lefanecha birtzat raglaim lehara. The way we have wronged you through our thoughtlessness, and harm we have caused in your world through impulsive acts. Al chet shechatanu lefanecha b'chozek yad, v'al chet shechatanu lefanecha bilzilzul horim u'morim. The ways we have wronged you by abusing our power, and harm we have caused in your world through disrespect to parents and teachers. Al chet shechatanu lefanecha b'yetze hara, v'al chet shechatanu lefanecha b'keshuat oref. The ways we have wronged you by giving in to our hostile impulses, and harm we have caused in your world through inflexibility and stubbornness. Al chet shechatanu lefanecha b'chachash u'v'chazav, v'al chet shechatanu lefanecha b'kalut rosh. The ways we have wronged you through lies and deceit, and harm we have caused in your world by making light of serious matters. Al chet shechatanu lefanecha b'siach siftotenu, v'al chet shechatanu lefanecha b'tzarut ayin. The ways we have wronged you in our routine conversations, and harm we have caused in your world through envy. For all these failures of judgment and will, God of forgiveness, forgive us, pardon us, lead us to atonement. On page 304, Al chet shechatanu lefanecha b'galui u'v'sater, v'al chet shechatanu lefanecha b'sinat chinam. The ways we have wronged you openly and secretly, and harm we have caused in your world by hating without cause. Al chet shechatanu lefanecha b'frikat ol, v'al chet shechatanu lefanecha b'machal u'v'mishteh. The ways we have wronged you by losing self-control, and harm we have caused in your world through consumption of food and drink. Al chet shechatanu lefanecha b'gilui arayot, v'al chet shechatanu lefanecha b'imutz halev. The ways we have wronged you through sexual immorality, and harm we have caused in your world by hardening our hearts. Al chet shechatanu lefanecha b'neshech u'v'marbit, v'al chet shechatanu lefanecha b'masa u'v'matan. The way we have wronged you through greed and exploitation, and harm we have caused in your world through dishonesty in business. Al chet shechatanu lefanecha b'hirur halev, v'al chet shechatanu lefanecha b'irchilut. The ways we have wronged you through our innermost thoughts, and harm we have caused in your world through gossip and rumor. Al chet shechatanu lefanecha b'chapat shochad, v'al chet shechatanu lefanecha b'chilul Hashem. The ways we have wronged you by offering or accepting bribes, and harm we have caused in your world by profaning your name in public. For all these failures of judgment and will, God of forgiveness, forgive us, pardon us, lead us to atonement. We offer our collective confession out loud as one community with one voice. But on page 308 to 309, we have an opportunity for our own silent confessions, for a moment of introspection and reflection on us to confess silently to God. Throughout the year, regard yourself as equally balanced between merit and sin. With one act, you can tip the balance for yourself and for the world. Every good deed makes a difference. And so it is written, a righteous person is the foundation of the world, for one who does good tips the balance of the scales and can save the world. How's it going? How are you? How are things? We get asked this question, or a variation of it, numerous times a day. But when I first moved to America, I had to get used to the fact that how are you is not necessarily a real question. The Cultural Atlas actually warns newcomers to this country this is usually a form of greeting rather than an actual inquiry about your well-being. The common response is, I'm good, thanks. How are you? Giving an answer that is deeply personal or less positive can make the situation uncomfortable if you are not very familiar with the person. I know that culturally there is a way that we are supposed to respond when asked, how are you? I know that it is not really an invitation to open up and to share how we are really feeling. But I have always felt that the lack of an honest answer to this question is a real missed opportunity. And if this was true before the pandemic, it is even more accurate now. How have any of us answered this question over the past 18 months? I'm good, thanks, doesn't seem to represent where any of us really are. Maybe the undefined answer of fine, okay, has been better during this period. Or maybe it needs a qualification. all things considered, we're okay, or we're COVID fine. During the last month or so, with all the juggling that summer entails, with the uncertainty of these high holy days, and with the emergence of Delta, my response was, we're surviving. That felt like all I could say when asked how we were, and it felt like a reply that said so much of what I needed to say. But I'm realizing it was still an avoidance of an answer. We don't want to admit that everything is not okay. We don't want to say that we are hurting, broken, exhausted, beaten down and exasperated by what is happening around us. We don't want to admit the truth. At some point, we internalize the lesson that we cannot admit our weaknesses in public, that our mental pain is something we must never share, that we have to soldier on, put a smile on our face, or in the British context, keep a stiff upper lip. This is why we almost never answer the question, how are you honestly? And it has to stop. It takes strength to admit our weaknesses. It takes courage to own our mental anguish. It takes confidence to speak publicly about our pain. It is for this reason that if I were awarding gold medals at the Olympics, then Simone Biles would be the undisputed winner atop the podium. I cannot imagine the courage and strength it must have taken to withdraw from the Olympic competition, putting her mental health first and doing what was also clearly best for the team. In the build-up to Tokyo, she was the face of Team America. She was the face of gymnastics. You could even make a case that she was the face of the Olympics. It was against that backdrop, with all eyes on her, that she was forced to deal with a personal matter under the spotlight of the world's media. We watched the qualifying rounds of the team competition, and you could see that something was not quite right. It was the look on her face, the way she moved. It appeared as though she was carrying the weight of the world on her shoulders. We were in shock the next day when news of her withdrawal began to filter out. Everyone wondered how we'd missed her getting injured. What ailment could be preventing her from competing on the biggest stage of all? Everyone looked for a physical explanation. No one considered the mental burden that she was carrying. In the press conference after the team event, she talked about not wanting to get in the way of the team winning a medal, and she said, "Today has been really stressful. Once I came out here, I was like, no, mental's not there, so I just need to let the girls do it and focus on myself." She faced the world's press and shared personal details about how she was feeling, and the media seemed unable to accept that this was an issue of mental health and mental exhaustion. They still looked for other reasons, physical explanations for her withdrawal, and people latched onto her having the twisties. A lot has now been written about the twisties, but at their core, they are related to her wellness and mental well-being. And we might wonder about why so many were reluctant to accept mental health as the reason for her withdrawal. Simone Biles is worthy of a gold medal for her courage, for shining a light on wellness and mental health, and for setting an example for all of us to speak up about how we are really feeling. And in her story, there is also the call for all of us to really listen to what others are saying, to hear them when they ask for help, whether explicitly or implicitly, and to be there, offering comfort and support. Today is Yom Kippur, the day where we stand before God in judgment. On this day we cannot hide. As we declare in the confession, "You know and understand us, for you examine our inner lives. Nothing is concealed from you, nothing hidden from your sight." If only we could be this open and this vulnerable in front of each other. If only we could allow others to see the pain that we are carrying and feeling. If only we could answer the question, how are you, truthfully, exposing the brokenness that is inside all of us. This is the change that I am searching for this Yom Kippur. This is the change that this hour demands. This is the change, the teshuvah, the return that is needed. There was a brewing mental health crisis before the pandemic began, but these last 18 months have exacerbated and exponentially increased the problem. COVID has broken our world, and we are all living through and living with the brokenness. In many ways, this period has simply been too much. We've been overwhelmed and overloaded. So much to take in, so much to process, so much to absorb. Many of you will have heard the story about the philosophy professor who stood before her class with an empty jar. She filled the jar with large rocks and asked her students if the jar was full. The students said yes, the jar was full. She then added small pebbles to the jar and asked again, is the jar full now? The students agreed that the jar was indeed full. The professor then poured sand into the jar and asked again. The students concurred that the jar was finally full. There are lots of explanations that people give at the end about what the rocks, pebbles, and sand represent. But my friend Rabbi Carrie Vogel offered a different lesson. As she taught, with the jar so full, there is no way in which to take anything out. It's all stuck. Most of our jars were already filled with rocks before the pandemic began. And then COVID added pebbles, filling whatever space they could find. And 18 months later, the sand represents the myriad little ways our lives are constantly changing as a result of living through a pandemic. Some of our jars have shattered. Many of them have cracked. But all of our jars are full way beyond their capacity and what can reasonably be held. There is an initial challenge in this moment to accept and hold our brokenness. One of the most powerful moments in Torah comes when Moses returns from Mount Sinai. He's been away from the people for 40 days and nights, sitting with God. And as he descends the mountain, holding in his hands the 2 tablets of stone with the 10 commandments upon them, he witnesses the people worshipping the golden calf. In a fit of rage and disappointment, he smashes the divine tablets on the ground, shattering them. The stones were broken. And while a new set would be created, carved by Moses and inscribed by God, the broken tablets were taken by the people to be carried in the ark alongside the new ones. In the Holy Ark, at the center of the community, throughout our journey to the Promised Land, we carried the broken tablets as a sacred object to be preserved and remembered. I would suggest that we couldn't have reached the Promised Land without holding on to both what was whole and what was broken at the same time. And it was a lesson to help all of us recognize that we can and do carry both sets of tablets in ourselves. We are simultaneously whole and perfect, but we are also in some ways broken. On Yom Kippur, we stand before God, and God sees us completely. There is no hiding, no concealing how we are feeling or covering up who we really are. But why don't we allow ourselves to open up like this to each other? Why are we so reluctant to admit when we struggle, to own the challenges we face, and to confess our brokenness? There are probably numerous reasons. Our society has unfortunately taught us that when we struggle in this way, we are weak. And weakness, or really the perception of weakness, is something to be avoided at all costs. Or perhaps we don't open up because we do not want to burden another person with our challenges. They have enough to deal with already. Or maybe we remain silent because if we share it with another person, then it forces us to acknowledge how we are really feeling, and we can no longer hide it from ourselves. We need to challenge this silence. Struggling with how we are feeling, especially as we live through a pandemic, is not a sign of weakness, it's a sign of humanity. The struggle is a real and valid response to what we are experiencing. When we open up to another person, we give them a gift. We deepen our relationship with them, and we give them permission to open up to us and share a piece of themselves. And while we may wish to deny how we are really feeling, until we own it, we cannot respond to it and help ourselves in the ways that we need. And so, on this day of confession, I stand before you and confess. I am broken. The pandemic has exhausted and drained me in ways that I could not imagine. I feel this physically and mentally. I say that as a husband, as a father, as a son, as a friend, but also as a rabbi, and simply as another human being struggling to make sense of living through this time. I feel this trauma now more keenly and acutely than at any other time over the last 18 months, because I am vaccinated but still forced to be cautious. And I returned to some sense of normalcy at the beginning of the summer, only to have it snatched away. It has made the last month or two even more exhausting, because some of my hope has been lost. Fear is the predominant feeling that I experience. I am fearful for my children who cannot yet be vaccinated. I am fearful about how the actions of others are affecting us. I am fearful that with misinformation campaigns and anti-vaxxers, there will be no way to get this under control. When I allow myself the space to reflect, I worry about what this period is doing to our children. I think about the fact that I haven't seen my parents in over 18 months, that my kids haven't seen their grandparents in almost 2 years, and I am scared about what the future will bring. My jar is full to bursting, and I can see that the cracks have already formed. This is how I am feeling, and I confess this not just before God, but before each and every one of you, because there should be no shame or embarrassment in sharing when we are struggling, no fear in admitting when we feel mentally exhausted, and no silence in the face of confronting the brokenness we experience. Simone Biles is my teacher, who helps me understand that we need to speak up and prioritize our own mental health. And the Torah is my teacher, as it tells the story of the broken tablets, carried alongside the tablets that were whole. We begin with a question. We need to ask, how are you? And to really mean it. To give a person the opportunity to answer the question with openness and honesty. If we are truly asking the question, we must provide the space for a person to truly answer. And then we must listen. Listen to what they are telling us. Hear the person open up. And sometimes we may need to push, gently and delicately, reading the visual cues or recognizing the non-answer fine or good, asking, how are you really doing? This does not mean that we will fix the brokenness, but we will provide a space for another person to be held and supported. We can ask, but will we answer? No one can obligate us to speak, but I hope that people will provide us with safe spaces in which to open up, and that we will help to create those opportunities for honest answers, both for ourselves and for others. We need to recognize that sharing our pain is not a sign of weakness, but it is actually a sign of strength. There should be no need to apologize for opening up. Through sharing our authentic feelings, we allow the light to shine through the cracks of our brokenness. So many studies discuss the importance of verbalizing what we are feeling to help make sense of it, and as a vital first step in confronting it. The silence is dangerous. When we create the space for people to speak about how they are feeling, to express their struggles, and to share their brokenness, we don't just help them, we don't just help ourselves, we actually help everyone. We recognize that we are not the only ones feeling this way. Suddenly, we have companions who are on a similar journey. We are all experiencing challenges and struggles. That is part of the human condition. And it is exacerbated by living through a pandemic. But we do not have to struggle alone. Even today, when we stand alone before God in judgment, open and honest about who we really are, we do it in the midst of a community. We say the same prayers, we recite the same confession, we share in this experience. We all experience brokenness. We have all been broken in different ways by this pandemic. We are all in this together. The aspiration is not to fix the brokenness. The original set of tablets once smashed were never repaired. Instead, as a community, we found a way to hold the brokenness. We shared the burden, and we were able to continue on our journey together. How are you? Perhaps the most important question that we can ask another person when we provide the space and opportunity for someone to truly answer, we give them a gift. And when they answer openly and honestly, that gift is returned tenfold. I hope that this will be a gift that we are able to share with each other and our world in the year that lies ahead. Gmar Chatima Tova. May we all be sealed for good. As we come towards the end of our service, there are so many people to thank for their hard work and dedication to put these High Holy Days together, and who ensure that we have a vibrant, caring, and engaging synagogue community. Thank you to our ushers, led by Liz and Jamie Vincent, who have done a marvelous job of welcoming everybody and ensuring that people are greeted as they arrive. Thank you to Richard Kay, who has spent more hours than I would care to imagine working on the sound and video for all of our services. You literally wouldn't see us or hear us without him. And alongside him, we thank John Legg, Roy Lurie, Emma Lurie, Alison Weichel, and Shanahan Sound for all of their technology and AV support. As always, the music in our service elevates our souls. We are so grateful to Susan DeSelms, our fantastic choir director, and Vivian Montgomery, our wonderful accompanist, and all of the members of our choir who add their beautiful voices and raise our prayers up. Alongside them, we thank our song leaders, Jay-Z and Lexi, who help in other services and in our schools. Thank you, Joyce Pastor, Ellen Herbert, and Susan Garfield and family for the flowers that we have in our sanctuary, and to Rochelle Nemro, who ensured that our toilettes, after too many years, are finally clean. Thank you to Signal 88 Security for keeping us safe, and to Julio Machado and Best Value Janitorial for all their help and work in the setup. And a special thank you to Camp Chickamy, who have welcomed us in for our B'Yachad services, even when we're not able to do them there. We are grateful to our tremendous Board of Trustees, led by Harry Merkin, and in this period we also say a huge thank you to our COVID task force, led by Amy O'Donnell. I am blessed to be part of an incredible synagogue team. Thank you to our office team, Karen, Christina, Julio, and Amy, and a huge thank you to Mary Beth, who leads that team and has done such a phenomenal job, both as our executive director and in holding these High Holy Days together. We are blessed with two phenomenal schools. Thank you to Allison, Jenna, and Andy, and to Stephanie and Marissa, alongside all of our tremendous teachers. We and our children are so lucky to have you. And personally, I want to thank my amazing clergy colleagues, Rabbi Jordi Cantaholis and our Rabbi Emeritus Herman Blumberg. I feel so blessed to be able to lead our community together with you each and every day. Being a synagogue professional is not always easy, and so on this day, I also want to thank all of our families who have been, on the whole, so understanding with the High Holy Day preparations over these past months, and really throughout the year with the time that we have given to the synagogue. Just as a reminder, we have another service at 11:30 that is now taking place in our parking lot, so while we're not chasing you out the building, we do ask that you leave quickly and speedily. And we thank you for that and for your flexibility over this entire period. Everyone should have received an email with details of our afternoon programming available via Zoom from 1:30 to 4:30. And to those of you who will be joining us, we'll be back in the sanctuary again at 5 o'clock for our afternoon service. and Yizkor and Ne'ilah, which will also all be available via the live stream. And as a reminder, Yom Kippur ends and Sukkot planning begins. So please do remember that from Monday evening we'll be celebrating Sukkot with lots of ways to enjoy and celebrate the holiday together. To end with one final story. Charles finally made partner and was seated with his feet on the desk in his new corner office. He was daydreaming of all the perks that accompanied his promotion when a knock on the door snapped him out of his reverie. He picked up the phone to give the illusion that he was busy as a young staffer came into the room. "I'll be with you in a minute," Charles mouthed to the employee, before engaging in a mock conversation on the phone. "Why, yes, I know the congressman quite well. We go sailing with the governor every other week," he said. He glanced over at the employee standing near his desk. "One more minute," he whispered, before returning to the conversation on the phone. "Why, I'd be happy to introduce you," he continued. "In fact, if you're free next Wednesday, we're having lunch with the senator." "Great, Wednesday it is," Charles said as he hung up the phone. "Thanks for being so patient," he said to the young staffer. "Now, how can I help you?" The employee blushed and said, "I'm here to connect your phone." We've all had those moments of pretending to be on the phone or in the midst of a conversation. Today, there can be no pretending. Today, we stand before God as we truly are, and what's more, our phone is connected, and we have the opportunity for a direct line to God. It's an amazing thing. We cannot waste this day. It's a chance to be our authentic and true selves as we come before God. I hope that we will seize this opportunity and through it embark on a year where we can be true to ourselves with no need to pretend. Gmar Chatima Tova, may we all be sealed for good. We conclude our service on page 318 with Hayom Harat Olam.
Hayom, 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 te'amseinu, amen. Hayom, 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 tivarcheinu, amen. Hayom, 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 hayom,
Gmar Chatima Tova, may we all be sealed for good. Amen.
Amen. Som kal.